How do governments use crisis to justify authoritarian legislation? Why do legislatures sometimes surrender their own authority voluntarily? At what point does emergency governance become permanent authoritarian rule? Hi, my name is Lauren Stokes. I'm a historian of modern Germany and a professor at Northwestern University. Today, we're in Berlin, Germany, in 1933. Some of the main characters of today's module include Adolf Hitler, Chancellor of Germany and leader of the Nazi Party, Marinus van der Lubbe, who was a Dutch communist found at the scene of the Reichstag fire, Paul von Hindenburg, the president of Germany, and the Nazi Party, the NSDAP, which is a ruling party seeking to consolidate power. On the evening of February 27th, 1933, the German parliament building, the Reichstag, went up in flames. A Dutch communist, Marinus van der Lubbe, was arrested at the scene. The fire occurred just 6 days before a national election, after a year of political paralysis. In 1932, Germans had elected the Reichstag twice. In both elections, the Nazis had won the largest share of the vote, but they had failed to secure a majority. Amid this gridlock, conservative politicians, businessmen, and bankers persuaded President Paul von Hindenburg to appoint Adolf Hitler as chancellor in January 1933. They believed Hitler could restore order and serve as a bulwark against the left. So this is one of the sources I've brought. This is the Hanussen Zeitung. It was Germany's most popular horoscope magazine at the time. Just a few days before the Reichstag goes up in flames, it actually publishes a death horoscope of the German Reichstag, which ends with the lines, "The time for debates is over. The time for parliamentary proceedings is past. Germany's fate now rests in the hands of men, not on the vagaries of parliamentary currents." This horoscope clearly shows the bankruptcy of what is hopefully the last Reichstag. They're trying to appeal to their readers by appealing to their readers' own sense of crisis, right? By appealing to their readers' own sense of unease, of discomfort with parliamentary democracy. What this horoscope tells us is that a lot of people had been busy imagining the end of the parliament before it actually happened. Responsibility for the fire has remained a matter of historical debate. Was van der Lubbe acting alone, or did the Nazis set the fire themselves and frame a foreign communist? From the very beginning, journalists and politicians questioned the official story. What is not disputed is how the Nazis responded. In the immediate aftermath of the Reichstag fire, Hitler declared the blaze the opening act of a communist uprising. Using emergency powers written into Germany's constitution, he issued the Reichstag fire decree, suspending core civil liberties, freedom of the press, freedom of assembly, and the privacy of mail, telegraph, and telephone communications. Police were authorized to act beyond normal legal limits. Over the next 2 weeks, approximately 10,000 communists were arrested. Opposition parties could no longer organize freely. Germany entered a state of permanent emergency. On March 23, 1933, less than 2 months after becoming chancellor, Hitler addressed the Reichstag to argue for the law to remedy the distress of the people and the Reich, commonly known by historians as the Enabling Act. The law would allow him to rule by decree for 4 years, bypassing parliament entirely. The circumstances were extraordinary. The Reichstag could not meet in its own building, and it convened instead in an opera house across the square. Communist deputies were absent, many already imprisoned. Some socialists were missing as well. Reports of newly established concentration camps had begun circulating in the press. Hitler appeared in the brown uniform of the Nazi paramilitary. Other paramilitary men waited nearby. He was asking Parliament to surrender its own power permanently. Every party present except the socialists voted in favor. This was the last time Hitler sought parliamentary consent. To understand this speech, students need to grasp its timing and its stakes. Hitler had been chancellor for less than 2 months. He had already curtailed civil liberties and arrested political opponents. Yet he lacked a decisive electoral victory. The Enabling Act was his solution. This case raises broader questions. How do crises, real or manufactured, enable the expansion of executive power? Students should be asked to imagine themselves as members of parliament in that moment. Their workplace had burned down. Their colleagues were missing. Armed men surrounded the chamber. What would they need to hear to vote themselves out of power?